the car had been sleeping under the water for nearly 40 years. A red Plymouth Reliant, silent, sealed, and waiting. Inside, the truth that Miami had buried. No one knew it was down there. Not the divers who searched the canals. Not the detectives who closed their files. Not even the family who still set a place for her every Christmas. They said she drove into the darkness on purpose. They said she couldn't take the weight anymore. But when her car was finally pulled from the murky canal, the story didn't look like a suicide anymore. It looked like something else, something crueler, something everyone missed. What really happened to Maureen Therese Sherman on that warm May night in 1985? How does a woman vanish in her own neighborhood, with her car, her life, and every trace, and stay hidden for nearly 4 decades? And why did it take a group of volunteer divers, not the police, to find her? This isn't just a recovery. It's a reckoning. Before we begin, tell me, where in the world are you watching from? Drop it in the comments right now so we know how far this story travels. Because what you're about to hear isn't just about Maureen. It's about every missing person who was written off, every mother who disappeared into silence, and every secret the water never meant to give back. You're watching the Found Files. Hit subscribe, because by the time this story ends, you'll understand why some disappearances were never accidents at all. Before the water claimed her name, Maureen Therese Sherman was just another woman living an ordinary Miami life. A mother. A neighbor. A heartbeat in a quiet suburban street. West Kendall, 1985, sunlight bouncing off the pastel-painted houses, kids pedaling bikes past sprinkler mist. Behind one of those doors lived Maureen, 47 years old, gentle, composed, and tired in a way that didn't show on her face. She smiled at neighbors, mailed bills on time, and drove a red Plymouth Reliant K station wagon, the kind of car you'd never look at twice. But people around her started to sense the cracks, small, quiet fractures only a few noticed. A sigh that lasted too long. A stare that drifted too far. Words like "I just can't anymore" whispered into the hum of daily life. Maureen had built her world like every mother does, out of duty and routine. But under that rhythm was a pressure she carried alone. Friends would later say she seemed different that spring, distracted, distant, the light dimming behind her eyes. It wasn't dramatic, it was subtle. That's how despair hides, not with screams, but with silence. She loved her children. She worried about them constantly. But sometimes love isn't enough to hold someone back from the edge they've been staring at for years. No one thought it was a goodbye when she left her home on May 1, 1985. They thought it was an errand, a drive, another normal day. Until the hours stretched too long. Until the night came and she didn't. Somewhere in that red car, parked under the Florida sun, a final decision was forming, one no one could reverse. And by the time anyone realized what she'd meant when she said, "I'm going to end this," the streets were empty, the canal was still, and Maureen Sherman was gone. May 1, 1985. The kind of Miami morning that looked harmless, sun warm on the palms, the air humming with cicadas. But for Maureen Sherman, it wasn't another day. It was the day. She walked out of her home on Southwest 131st Avenue, keys in hand, shoulders slightly hunched, a woman carrying an invisible goodbye. Behind her, the house waited, photos still smiling from the walls, dishes still drying in the rack. Nothing to suggest that within minutes, it would all become a shrine. Neighbors saw a red Plymouth Reliant K pull from the driveway. The same car she'd used for grocery runs, school pickups, small errands that built a life. But this time, there was no destination. Only direction, west, toward the canals that laced through Kendall like veins of black glass. She didn't run away. She didn't pack. She didn't leave a note. Just a final sentence spoken days before, "I think I'm going to drive into the water." A line that sounded like despair, until it became prophecy. Hours passed. Then a day. Then 2. Phone calls went unanswered. The car didn't return. Her family reported her missing, panic mixing with disbelief, because how could a car, a woman, a mother, just vanish off a flat Florida road? Detectives scoured nearby canals with flashlights cutting through the night. They searched boat ramps, bridges, brush, nothing. No tire marks, no skid, no sign of a crash. Just still water reflecting the moon, as if guarding a secret. Rumors started to bloom. Maybe she'd run away. Maybe she was taken. Maybe she changed her mind and left to start over. Theories are what people build when the truth won't show itself. But those who knew Maureen felt something heavier, a sense that she was still out there, close, watching from somewhere beneath the surface. The police logged the case. The flyer went up, missing person, Maureen Therese Sherman, age 47, red Plymouth Reliant K, Florida tag XEB875. And with that, she became a file number. Case 1693225F. The water stayed silent. And for 38 years, Maureen stayed missing. A name whispered into the dark, while the canal that held her secret rippled softly under the Florida sun. Years began to stack like dust. 1985 faded into 1986, then 87, then decades that blurred together, each one passing without a single answer. Maureen Sherman's name slipped from the headlines, swallowed by time. But for her family, the silence was a living thing. It breathed inside their home, lingered in their sleep, haunted their dinner tables. Her children grew up with questions no one could answer. Birthdays came and went with an empty chair. Holidays felt incomplete, every celebration edged with guilt, because how do you move on when you don't even know if she's gone? The flyer, that single sheet of paper with her photo, turned yellow at the corners, the ink fading like the hope it carried. Her car's license plate, XEB875, became a code whispered between detectives and volunteers, each of them trying to find a vehicle that didn't want to be found. Miami-Dade investigators reopened the file more than once. Divers checked canals, sonar scans swept murky waters, but Florida has thousands of canals, deep, winding, choked with weeds and silt. It's where cars go to vanish. And where truth goes to sleep. The case turned into a ghost story among local officers, the woman who drove into the dark and never came out. Some believed she had taken her life. Others wondered if someone had helped her disappear. There were no witnesses, no confessions, no traces. Just a canal that refused to give her back. For nearly 4 decades, her name sat in databases, buried beneath new cases, new tragedies. But every so often, her children would call the police again, just to ask, did anyone ever find her car? And every time, the answer was the same. No. Nothing yet. The silence of those words was louder than any truth. Because silence meant she could still be out there. It meant the water was still keeping its promise, to hide her, to hold her, to wait until someone cared enough to look again. It took 38 years for the water to speak. January 2024. A volunteer dive team, Sunshine State Sonar, set out across a quiet Miami canal, their sonar scanners sweeping through black water. They weren't searching for Maureen specifically. They were searching for anyone. Any trace of the missing city had been forgotten. Then, a shape appeared on the screen. Small. Boxy. Resting at the bottom of the canal like an artifact from another time. It looked like a car. But not just any car, it looked like her car. A red 1983 Plymouth Reliant K. The same model, the same silhouette described in a case file from 1985. License plate still visible through the silt and decay, XEB875. The divers fell silent. This wasn't a rumor anymore. This was real. 32 feet below the surface, wrapped in decades of algae and branches, Maureen Sherman's final resting place had been waiting, untouched, unseen, and unknown. As the vehicle broke through the surface of the canal for the first time in nearly 4 decades, the smell of gasoline, rust, and history filled the air. The red paint, now faded to brown, peeled away like old skin. Inside, the remains of a woman who had vanished without a trace. The dive team didn't celebrate. They stood there, soaked, silent, reverent. They had just pulled closure from the deep. Police confirmed the discovery. The vehicle matched the make, model, and tag from the original missing person bulletin, case hashtag 1693225F, Miami-Dade Police Department. The same car Maureen drove away in on May 1, 1985. The same car that never came home. After 38 years of theories, the truth was simple and cruel. Maureen hadn't run away. She hadn't started a new life. She had been there all along, just beneath the surface. The canal had kept her secret. And when the world was finally ready to look, it gave her back. When the canal gave her back, it also gave back the truth, one piece at a time. The car. The license plate. The remains inside. Every fragment of Maureen Sherman's final moments, preserved by darkness, delivered by time. Police and forensic teams confirmed what the family had feared and somehow already known: the red Plymouth Reliant K was hers. The driver's seat still held traces of the life that once filled it: keys, metal fragments, the ghostly outline of a steering wheel turned one last time. There was no sign of foul play. No broken glass. No forced entry. Only quiet. The same kind of quiet that follows a decision too heavy to speak aloud. It was as if Maureen had driven into the water, exhaling her final breath as the car filled and the surface sealed her fate. The cause, likely drowning. The intent, heartbreakingly deliberate. To some, it was closure. To others, confirmation of a nightmare that had haunted them for nearly 40 years. Her children, now grown, stood before a truth that felt both merciful and merciless. They finally knew where she was, but knowing didn't make it easier. They had imagined her trapped, taken, lost to the world. But she had been just down the road, beneath the same streets they drove every day, beneath the same sky that watched her leave. The community reeled. How could she have been there, so close, all this time? How many times had they driven over that canal, never realizing the secret resting beneath them? The revelation was both answer and accusation, a reminder of how easy it is for the missing to stay invisible when no one looks deep enough. Maureen Sherman didn't vanish into mystery. She vanished into neglect. Into the quiet spaces between "we'll keep searching" and "maybe someday." And in the end, it wasn't the police, or the system, or a miracle that found her. It was persistence. It was ordinary people refusing to let her be forgotten. The divers called it closure. But closure doesn't erase the question that lingers in the wake of truth. What pain did she carry, alone, that felt heavier than life itself? And how many more still lie hidden beneath our silence, waiting for someone, anyone, to find them? The canal is quiet again now. No sirens. No cameras. Just the sound of wind brushing the water that kept her secret for 38 years. Maureen Therese Sherman is no longer missing. But she'll never truly be gone. Her story lives in the stillness she left behind, in the ripple that spreads each time someone whispers her name, each time a stranger watches her story and feels the weight of how easily a life can disappear unnoticed. Think about it, for almost 4 decades, her children drove those same streets, crossed those same bridges, and never knew that just beneath them, their mother was waiting. And yet, even after all that time, she was found. Because someone refused to stop searching. Because technology caught up. Because people still cared. That's what the Found Files is about, not just mysteries, but memory. Not just the missing, but the people who refuse to forget them. So before you click away, ask yourself, how many more are still out there? How many families are still waiting for the call that never comes? How many canals, woods, and back roads are still holding their secrets tight? If you're watching this, you can help. By keeping their names alive. By sharing their stories. By refusing to let the missing become ghosts. Hit subscribe, not for the algorithm, but because every click, every share, every comment is a whisper that says, "We see you. We remember you. We won't stop until you're home." Drop a comment right now, tell us where you're watching from, so we know just how far Maureen's story has reached. Let her name echo across borders, across screens, across time. Because Maureen Sherman's story isn't just a tragedy. It's proof that even after decades in the dark, truth still rises. This is the Found Files, where every lost soul has a voice, and where silence never wins.